I'm the board game captain.
I'm Lynn.
And today we're going to be counting down our top 10 worker placement games. So Lynn, how would you define a worker placement game?
You put a dude on a designated space and then you get something.
Okay. I love that you said a dude.
Dude is gender neutral.
Well, no, I wasn't implying that it wasn't, but
Okay.
but I just mean like rather than saying a game piece, like you put a game piece on a
little
space.
dudes.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, so my definition's slightly different. I would say you put a game piece of some kind, maybe even a die, because sometimes worker placement games use dice. They're occasionally referred to as dice worker placement, on a space, a card, something that has an effect, or sometimes to accumulate towards an effect, is what I would say. But it's almost the same thing. It's slightly different, but similar, wouldn't you say? So, did you have any trouble making your list?
No.
Yeah, mine was pretty easy. I like a lot of worker placement games, so I have a feeling there's going to be a fair amount of crossover between our lists, but there might be some interesting differences as well. So, without any further ado, let's get right to the list. Number 10. You know, before we started, I forgot to ask you, did you want to go first or second on these?
I'll go first.
Okay, we'll start us off with the number 10 then.
My number 10 is Near and Far.
Oh, okay.
It has it's not a full worker placement game, but it has the worker placement element up in the town area.
Yeah, but you do a lot of it. You do a lot of it.
In the beginning, yeah, because you need resources.
I mean, later when you go out and you start putting your tents in the countryside, there's less worker placement going on. But early on, you spend most of your time just doing the worker placement in the town. Yeah, it's like weird though, because it's like there's a lot in that game. There's also like storytelling and adventuring.
I think there's also like resource management because you have a bag and I think you can only carry a certain amount of things.
Yeah, but then also with the worker placement, it's weird because you only have like usually only one worker. It's just you. And you but yeah, no, I like that game a lot too. That's a really good one. So that was your number 10. Near and Far?
Yes.
Okay, I was waiting for you to say it again.
Oh, well, you just kept talking, so I thought you were going to say it.
Oh. Okay, then. Well, my number 10 is the first worker placement game you and I ever played together. Okay. Do you know what that is?
Manhattan Project?
No, but you were close. Lords of Waterdeep.
Oh, okay.
So, Lords of Waterdeep, I mean, it's a classic. Manhattan Project, I believe, was the second we played together. And then, but Lords of Waterdeep. So, Lords of Waterdeep is a classic worker placement game by the standards of worker placement. It's a fairly new game mechanic. It hasn't been around that long. And Lords of Waterdeep is one that's set in like the Dungeons and Dragons Waterdeep city. So it's got a kind of a cool setting that a lot of gamers are familiar with. And in it, you take on the role of one of these like crime bosses of Waterdeep, and you're sending adventurers on adventures. The adventurers are the workers. And what's really cool about it, in my opinion, is that it's one of the first worker placements that I recall where they had different types of workers, because the different colors of workers were the different types of adventurers, like a fighter or a mage or a rogue, and you needed different ones to complete different tasks. And it was a really cool game. And it's one that I wish hit the table more often now.
It also has which not all worker placements do this, but it has you could buy buildings and add more spots.
Yeah, and that is
board.
You're right. That's one of the first that did that too, and that's also one that I think that's a mechanic that has moved on and been in a lot of my other favorite worker placements as well. Is having variable spots. So yeah, I agree. Number 9.
My number 9 is Lords of Waterdeep.
Oh, first crossover. Anything to add about Lords of Waterdeep?
Not really. No, I think we covered it when you mentioned it.
I was gonna say you did add some stuff in when I mentioned it already.
Yeah.
It's a really good game. I mean, even though it's old, and this is one that I have to say, if you haven't tried Lords of Waterdeep, because it's been around a long time, it's a really good one. I would recommend checking it out. You can really see a bit of the history of where worker placement has come from to now. So is that it then?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So my number 9 is Caverna. Now, Caverna was a bit of a sequel game, even though it doesn't have a 2 on it. It was a sequel to the game Agricola. So it was similarly about farming. The subtitle of Caverna is The Cave Farmers. And you're about dwarves who live in these caves, and at the same time, you have to build up your farm, as well as mine out and dig out the cave to expand your farm and residence. Yeah. And you do, like, it feels kind of like a village building a little bit, the way you build all that out, because you add in new rooms and new areas of the farm, new animal pens. You do resource management, and you get to raise animals and all sorts of different things. And basically, it's whoever has the biggest, most successful farm and cave at the end of the game is the winner. And it combines a lot of really interesting and cool elements that I personally find incredibly enjoyable. I think Caverna, the Cave Farmers, is one that holds up. It's got a lot going on, and there's a big debate between Agricola and Caverna. I'm firmly on the Caverna side. I think Caverna is definitely an improvement over Agricola, and is another one that, even though that one's been out for a long time, I think it holds up. Quite a good game. I haven't yet tried, I don't know that there's a strictly 2-player version called like Caverna Duel. I haven't tried that yet. I'd like to, though. Number 8.
My number 8 is parks. And you have a trail that your little hikers are going on, and then you get the resources from whatever trail space you put them on, and then you can buy national parks. Do you buy them? I don't think you buy them.
You do. You get the resources to then trade them in for the park cards.
For national parks and for like equipment and stuff that'll help you along the way.
It's interesting because it's like a straight line, but you decide how far along the line you want to go and what space
and as
to
long
go
as
into.
No one else is on that space, you can hop all the way to the end if you really want.
Right, but that's usually I mean, there's some benefits, but it can be detrimental.
Then you don't get any resources on the way,
right?
Because it's like you're just like running on the trail instead of hiking and like picking things up.
So this is one we had a discussion recently, and you had told me you thought of this as worker placement, and I was a little surprised because I didn't occur to me as being worker placement. But after you talked about it, you're like, well, yeah, you go on the spots on the trail, you get the stuff, and then I was like, oh, you're right, it really is. Like, it really is. I don't know why I didn't think of it, but I still kind of kept it off my list, even though I like this one a lot, because I don't even know why, but for some reason for me it doesn't feel like it qualifies, though I bought into your justification enough that I wouldn't give you any garbage for it, if that makes sense. So what number was that?
8.
8, and that was parks.
Yes.
Okay. So my number 8 is one that I highly, highly anticipate will be on Lynn's list, but higher up. And it is another older, and all might have been older so far, I just realized this. It's another older worker placement game. This one has been out for quite some time. In fact, it's an older style of worker placement, and that is Pillars of the Earth. Now, Pillars of the Earth, you are doing lots of worker placement and resource management as you are on a great big board. There's lots of different spaces and lots of different things to do. But the interesting thing about it is it's this older style of worker placement where you each take turns placing your workers on the board, and nothing happens immediately. Then the next person places, then the next person places, then the next person places, then the next person places. And you all do it, and then what it is there's a strict order you then go through and resolve. And you'll take your worker off and do what that action is that you had taken the space for. And it's really neat in how that works. And also, there's the church, I know cathedral, you love that, the big cathedral.
Building a cathedral.
That is a turn tracker, because every turn...
the first player puts a piece down
of the cathedral until it's fully built, and then when it's fully built, the game's over. This is a really fun game. This is another one I think holds up, and it is very interesting. Though, for a while you hadn't seen this style anymore, but actually now this older style of worker placement seems to be making a bit of a comeback. There's some newer games that are doing it this way again, which is weird because it kind of totally disappeared, except for a few of these quality older ones that kept getting reprinted, because this is one that gets reprinted a bunch. But anyway, so that was my number 8, Pillars of the Earth. Number 7.
My number 7 is Oath of the Brotherhood.
Oh, yeah, good one.
And this is another one where it has, you add spaces similar to the buildings in Lords of Waterdeep.
A lot of spaces.
Yeah, but this is, I guess it is pretty much the same. It's you have to put your worker on a specific space, and then you flip up a card and add the card. So it's actually free. I think you have to buy the buildings in Lords of Waterdeep. It costs money. So that, I mean... You just basically, in this one, you go to the... You have to use a worker to get it.
Yeah, so it's not free. I mean, you do use a worker. Yeah. But then, I mean, the new spaces have so many different varied abilities that it really adds to the game.
And this one also has player boards where there's individual player powers on the player boards, I think.
Well, there's... The powers are the same for each player. Oh, okay. But they're
different pirates.
But you can focus on different areas because that's the thing is like there's like is it 4? I think there's 4 different things you can focus on, and some like one makes it better for like if you want to attack people, and others make you better at defense. And
no, I'm pretty sure that each individual pirate has its own little ability.
I'm gonna have to look at the game again. Now I'm not sure. We're in the middle of recording. I'm not sure, but I was gonna say I haven't played it in a while.
I'm pretty sure it's some kind of like extra starting thing, or like you get like an extra gold. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, there might be.
I'm like 99% sure that there's variable player powers that do something.
Well, someone's gonna comment down below and correct one of us, so that'll be fine. So
that was my number 7, Oath of the Brotherhood.
So my number 7 is Asking for Troubles. Now, this is a game I've talked about quite a bit on this channel because I think this game is, in my opinion, one of the best entry-level worker placement games. It's a great game to introduce people to worker placement. It's because it's one of the easiest to learn and easiest to teach. It's also got this very lighthearted, colorful feeling to it. I love the artwork style, the cartoony orange monsters, the troubles. You're slowly building aliens. Yeah, they're aliens. Yes, of course. Well, alien monsters. Mm-hmm. And you're going on the spots, and the basic thing is you're building up stuff to be able to get the right traps to then trade them in to catch the trouble. And then once you've caught the trouble, you still have to take an action to throw them into the sun to be able to earn their points.
Who's the monster now?
And that's Asking for Troubles. I'm a big fan of Asking for Troubles. I think it's a really, really fun game. And that's why it is my number 7. Number 6.
My number 6 is Asking for Troubles.
Well, there's another crossover. Is that the second? That's
yes.
The second crossover, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's not too many so far. I thought there'd be more. Maybe there will be. No. I'm pretty sure there will be.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, pretty much everything you said, and, I mean, it's my number... What number was that? I keep forgetting.
What was your
6?
6.
So my number 6, Asking for Troubles.
Okay, so that... nothing else really to add?
No.
Okay. So my number 6... is Ex Libris. So Ex Libris is a worker placement game that slowly adds new tiles itself to the worker placement because you get a set of tiles each round, but then there's one you keep before getting the new set. The rest get discarded, and they will add new worker spaces. And you are a gnome librarian. You have a couple gnome workers, and everybody in the advanced play, which is, in my opinion, the only way to play this, you each get also a random asymmetrical player power worker, which one of the best is always the gelatinous cube. But then there's a witch, there's a snowman, there's a ghost. Yeah, the ghost is good. There's a bookworm. There's tons of different ones, and each one has a different power it can uniquely do. Usually, when you play it either on a tile or on any tile, or allows it to, like with the ghost, I think it's the only one that allows it to play on a space that's already occupied, which is really cool. And the object of the game is to play on spaces and accumulate cards, and then you play the cards into a tableau that needs to be in a alphabetical library. The cards have books on them, they're bookshelves, and you want to be making a alphabetical library out there on the board. And basically you want to have the highest point library at the end of the game, and then you're the winner of Ex Libris. Ex Libris is tons of fun. My favorite part, I think, is the asymmetrical player powers. That's why I spent so much time talking about them. I think those guys are awesome, and that is why Ex Libris is my number 6. Number 5.
My number 5 is Artifacts Inc.
Oh.
And Artifacts Inc. is one that uses dice as workers. You are an archaeologist, and you have to go on expeditions, which you then roll dice, and you have to use certain numbers to complete the expedition. And then you can also put those dice in, you can sell the things you find to a museum where you need a certain amount of dice on certain numbers to sell it to the museum. And there's also it's not a museum, it's like a collector or something. Like
you can sell stuff to like a private collection.
Yeah, like a shifty private collector.
Yeah. And there's also like there's that place where you can go diving for stuff.
You can go diving for like sea treasure.
We haven't played that one in a while. That's a good game. That one didn't quite make my list, but I like that one a lot. I agree with you. That's a really good one.
Oh, so that was my number 5, Artifacts Inc.
Artifacts Inc. Good one. Good choice. So my number 5 is a game that I struggled with if it was worker placement. And I was like, it feels like it is, but is it? It doesn't quite feel. Maybe it's a different kind of worker placement. And then I went on the big authority, Board Game Geek, and it classified it as worker placement. So I was like, all right, well, if it's good enough for Board Game Geek, I'm going to go with it. And that is Unearth. So Unearth is a game where what you do is you have, and they're even called workers. There is that. You have this set of dice, and there's mostly 6-sided dice, though you have one 4-sided die and one 8-sided die. And the thing is, there are these cards out there that you're trying to earn. And what it is the cards will have a number on it, which is a threshold. And once you break the threshold, whoever has the most points on that card, the most value of dice, will earn that card. So what you're going to do is you pick one of your workers and you pick a card and you're like, I'm going to put this worker on that card. You roll them and you put them on the card. If you get a high number, that's going to be really good, obviously. That's going to work real well towards not only having the most on that card, but also bursting the card. But if you roll low, there's also another benefit. If you roll, I think it's a 1 or a 2 or a 3 maybe.
Okay.
I think it is. You get these stones, which then if you make patterns with them, there's other ways to earn points with those. So there's good stuff to do whether you roll high or low. So if you get disappointed by a low roll, it's still kind of okay because you get these other items. You get to take stones, and you want to put the stones in like a circle, so that then you can, when you get them in a pattern in a circle, there's certain other like point chits you can earn that you then put in the middle of that circle for getting the right patterns. The game is a lot of fun. It's really cool. It definitely feels like a different sort of worker placement, but it does feel like it evolved from standard worker placement. It's just that the designers really thought outside the box for this one, And that's why Unearth is my number 5. Number 4.
My number 4 is Pillars of the Earth.
I knew this was going to be on your list.
Yeah. I really like building the cathedral because I mention it every time. Even though it's just a turn counter. It's a little 3D wooden thing.
You just
It's
enjoy
fun.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And I do like, all I prefer the older style of worker placement where everyone puts their workers down and then you get your stuff.
You actually think that's
Yes.
the superior version?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I didn't know that. So, well, it is a really fun one.
Yeah. So that was my number 4, Pillars of the Earth.
Oh, okay. Well, my number 4 is another one that I had to check Board Game Geek just to see that it was, yes, a worker placement, because it was one of those, I'm looking through my favorite games, and I said, hey, that would involve putting guys down so that they can get me stuff. It seems like worker placement. And I went on Board Game Geek, and Board Game Geek agreed. It said it was worker placement. I might get some garbage for this one, but my number 4 is Professor Treasure's Secret Sky Castle. I love this game. This game is so much fun. And it's weird because this game...
Is the cards are the workers?
The cards are the workers. They are. And I didn't think of it at first. This game fits into so many different classifications, which is so interesting. So the thing is, you randomly deal out a grid of tiles, and you're trying to get the artifacts and treasures in the tiles. There's treasure chests, there's keys, there's artifacts, and you're trying to get the best ones. And what you do is you have a deck of cards that are different types of explorers. And at the beginning of every hand of this game, because you play 3 hands of it, you shuffle them up and remove a couple random ones, and then you get to see what you have. And then you choose one at a time, and they can usually either be placed above the grid, next to the grid, or on tiles of the grid. Sometimes they can even be placed over other cards that your opponent has already put down. And then once you've all placed all your cards, they go in initiative order, unless you've got a guy who allowed you to cover someone up, in which case their initiative gets delayed. And they'll have effects like can take card that's under it, or can take tile that's adjacent to it. And whichever one it is, you take it, but you got to hope you have the right resources, because you need enough keys to open the chests, or then you have to take skeleton keys, which will eventually be worth negative points. The more skeleton keys, the worse those negative points get. But chests could be worth a lot of points sometimes, and sometimes might even be worth getting some of those negative points because of all the positive points you would get. And then the artifacts, the more artifacts you have, the more they're worth. The game is a lot of fun, and then a lot of the guys have other really cool abilities where sometimes they allow you to alter the tiles, so to mess with your opponent and what they were going to take. Or there's the thieves who can steal a tile right out from someone when they were about to take it, so they go like out of initiative order. Yeah, I love this game a lot. It is really fun, and that is why Professor Treasure's Secret Sky Castle is my number 4 worker placement game. Number 3.
My number 3 is Everdell.
Oh, that's a good one.
And in this one, it's similar to Ex Libris, where you're getting cards to build a tableau in front of you. But in order to do that, you need the resources that you put your workers on.
Correct.
And it's like woodland creature themed. So you're building like a little village in the woods with like owls and bats and
squirrels and rabbits. Very adorable.
It's really cute.
And there's the giant tree.
Yeah, there's a 3D tree with which is really unnecessary, but
it looks cool. But it looks cool.
It just has like the cards on it for the different
for some quests and stuff,
seasons and stuff.
But and then the thing you're building in front of you is literally
a village.
The cards are all either villagers or buildings. Yeah.
And this also has a couple of random cards that you put out on the board to change the spaces at the beginning.
Yes.
It's not during, it's at the beginning. You get four special spaces that constantly cycle.
Yeah, so that way it's not always the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool. Yeah, I do like the varied spaces from that, yeah.
Oh, so that was my number 3, Everdell.
Oh. Okay, so my number 3 is a game we played very recently. And it's weird because This is another stretch. I don't usually put this many stretches on my list, but this one was one where it really did feel like there was worker placement in it, but again, in a very different type, and this is Shifting Realms. So, Shifting Realms is a very interesting style game where you move your warriors and your scouts around the board. And the way the worker placement comes in is when you get your scouts to places like mines or forests or quarries, there are worker spots that then at the beginning of the next turn they will automatically go on, and from then on they will start earning you bits of those resources. And the resources are key for being able to buy buildings and upgrades, which will eventually win you the game because they get you points. One of the biggest ways to get points is buying buildings in that game. So the resources are incredibly important for that, but then also the resources themselves can actually be worth points at the end of the game as well. There's a lot more to it than I'm saying. It's a lot more involved in this. There's 5 possible realms. You shuffle them up at the beginning. You get 3 of the 5. Each one has a different end condition. You have to meet 2 of the 3 end conditions to end the game. And there's tons of variety. There's one of the realms that has a dragon that flies around. There's another one that lets you go on pirate raids. There's another one that has dwarves and
Troll King.
Oh, there's one with the Troll King where you have to fight the Troll King. The one with the dragon also has dwarves, and it has a tunnel system you can buy that allows you to zip around all over the place. There's tons of really cool stuff going on in that game, and that's why Shifting Realms I have placed as my number 3 favorite worker placement game. Number 2.
My number 2 worker placement game is Dark Domains.
Oh, yes,
and this is a newer game, but it has everyone places stuff and then you go in order to get your resources. And you're also building a little village in front of you. You have a board where you're putting cards. And it added the interesting thing of adventurers trying to stop you and possibly raiding your village and doing damage.
Yes. They are such jerks, those adventurers.
Well, in the beginning, they give you money because they don't realize how evil you are yet.
Yeah, when they think you're good, they come by and they pay homage.
Yeah.
And then later, when they realize you're evil, then they start attacking you.
Yeah.
And destroying and you're like, oh my god. Gotta get rid of them.
Well, you can hire people like mercenaries
to help defend against them.
To help you.
Yeah, which is very useful.
And you have spells because you're an evil necromancer.
Yeah. But the main board plays a lot like Pillars of the Earth, but even cooler. And then your own personal board plays like kingdom building, which is really cool.
Yeah, because you have to. Sometimes the cards can only be built on a certain terrain, so that was my number 2, Dark Domains.
So. My number 2 is Dark Domains. There was no doubt in my mind.
Copying me.
There's no doubt in my mind that this was going to be on both our lists. But I think it's hilarious that it's in the exact same spot. We're in total agreement that this is number 2. Number 2 is definitely Dark Domains. This game is great. The board is beautiful. It's a work of art. I thoroughly enjoy this game. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It was beat out only slightly by my number 1. And that's why Dark Domains is my number 2 as well as yours. And now it is time for number 1.
My number 1?
Wait, drumroll.
Oh. My number 1 is Ex Libris.
Ooh, okay.
I like the variable player powers. I like alphabetizing books. I like building a library. I like gnomes, because you're a gnome librarian. That's
so
it.
So your number 1 was a crossover also, huh?
Yeah.
My number 1's also a crossover.
Yeah.
I love how you just said that because do you know what it is?
Yeah.
What's my number 1?
Everdell.
Oh, okay. I get yes, yes. My number one is Everdell because Everdell is awesome. Lynn already talked about it a bunch. I love the village building in it. I love how there's this really cool mechanic. One thing you didn't talk about when you talked about Everdell was there's this really cool mechanic in Everdell where while generally all of the cards for the buildings and the animals, which are the villagers, will cost resources, and you got to collect the resources to be able to pay for them. There's also an effect where if you manage to have in your hand or on the board, there's a common board where anyone can buy the buildings or villagers from the common area. If you have that in either area, there's a certain villager that matches up with a certain building each. If you get the building first, you then, when you get to take your next action, rather than pay for the villager, you can just take an occupy token and put it on the building and get the villager for free. And that chaining, because it saves you resources, because usually they'll cost quite a bit of resources, can be awesome. And then in addition, building up the village, a lot of the villagers and buildings give you extra abilities. Like whenever you harvest, you'll get an extra of this resource. Or whenever you do this, you'll get an extra of this resource. Or
well, some of them also have spaces that you can use. And some of them are like only anyone can use the space, or like only the owner can use the space.
Right.
It's different.
And there's lots of cool abilities. And the point I'm making, though, is that part of it can sometimes feel like a bit of engine building. Because you build up these effects, and then they just happen, or you can trigger them by, like you said, placing a worker on the space. And yeah, Everdell is fantastic, and it's why it's my number one favorite worker placement game. So there you have it. That was our top 10 favorite worker placement games. I hope you guys enjoyed this list. Comment down below what you thought of our choices, or if you'd like, comment down below and tell us what are your favorite worker placement games. And if you enjoyed this list and you'd like to see us do more top 10 lists like this, be sure to give this video a like, share it on all forms of social media. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And if you're in a position to help the channel and you'd like to, in our description down below, we have a link to our Patreon where you can join. And we have a link to our store over on Teespring where we have some shirts and mugs. I'll throw some pictures up of them here. And until next time, game on.